household
received.
challenge.
Now, is he going to be here or
On Zoom.
on Zoom?
Yep.
So we can watch it down here. Okay.
We need 4 for a quorum.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to
we're
open the meeting,
missing 2.
the planning commission meeting and historic preservation committee.
Advisory committee
Yeah.
Is advisory commission?
or committee?
Advisory commission.
Committee.
Commission.
Does it? Okay.
What is it? Because I'm going to open it.
Historic Advisory Commission.
Okay, I'll try to remember that. So anyway, I'm going to open both those so we don't have to just get done at one time.
Has the council appointed any new commissioners yet?
He sells windows. Who left?
Oh, yeah, Mike.
Mike Britton?
Yes.
Mike.
Britain.
Oh, he left?
Yeah.
He was on for a long time.
It was taking a toll on him. He's been a commissioner for
6 or 7 years.
It's wonderful.
Quite a
How
while.
long have you been one? Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
How long?
Thank you.
8 or 10 maybe?
Yeah.
Years? You've been on longer than I have? I've been on longer than that?
How long have you been on?
I don't know. I don't remember. Last year.
I've done, and I
Wow.
served
Oh,
somebody's
that's right.
before that.
Is it
Wow.
turn?
So going on 10 years. Has
Yeah,
it changed
I've
a
got
lot?
almost 12 years now.
Well, Randy was on it for 12, and Blaine was on it. Was it Blaine or Damon? Damon. He was on it for 20 years.
20 years, yeah. That's too long. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to live that long. You don't have to worry about it.
I know you're doing pretty good, Carl.
You're lucky. You're lucky if you got another 5 years of me. I'm going. Okay. There we go.
Good. He's here. With 30 seconds to spare.
Okay, you ready? We're on? Okay. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Oroville City Planning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission, whatever.
Historic Advisory Commission.
You got it. Anyway, call both organizations to order. Would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Jenkins? Here. Commissioner Jensen?
Here.
Commissioner Sheard?
Here.
Commissioner Hallen? Commissioner Arasi?
Here.
Chairperson Derling?
Here. Thank you. Will everyone rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Well, I don't see anybody here, so there's probably no one went next to make off-agenda items, unless, we're public though. Could somebody actually
Never mind. They did
raise
it.
their hand or do something and if they wanted to talk to us on an off-agenda
Yes,
item?
No,
Okay,
they have to submit electronically to the clerk in advance of the meeting or be present.
okay, but, so I should ask or make sure no one has done that.
We've received no electronic
We have- okay,
communications
that-
or
we
public
need to always
comments.
ask that question.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, consent calendar, I need a motion and a second on the minutes.
I move to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and call the roll. We're gonna do calling the roll, right?
We can.
Because I don't see
voting.
it.
Oh, Danny will put it up on the screen now to vote.
Whoops, I didn't mean no.
You can click it
I
back.
can, I
Yeah.
can hit yes.
There you go.
we go.
Yes. And Mr. Kopshever is filling in for our clerk while she's absent this evening, so.
Okay, good. Okay, that passed. Thank you. Okay, under regular business, item 2 is discussion about our fences and walls and screening. And I'm gonna have the young lady to my right here kind of take over. She's been into historic preservation for quite a while, and
Oh, Commissioner Durling, this is regarding the fencing, so Connor
Oh,
Musler will
oh,
be
I'm sorry.
presenting
That's
this
right.
item.
I'm sorry, I take that back. You're not gonna. See, my first mistake. Anyway, so regarding the fence walls and screening municipal code, staff?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. Connor Musler, Assistant Planner, coming to you from Zoom. I'm getting my presentation all set up here. I'm going to share my screen in a quick second, so bear with me, please. Danny, did you start screen sharing or
Yes.
are able to project? Okay, good. Just want to
Yes.
make sure if everyone can see my screen. Okay. So again, good evening, Commissioners. We are back here again to discuss the fences, walls, and screening changes to the municipal code. The City Council discussed this last week on Tuesday. The consensus was to return to the Planning Commission for further discussion. There was some concern from the council regarding the height of fences, the strict limitation of height within the front yard, how to balance the need of public safety and personal privacy concerns and things like that. So put together a presentation further allowing us to discuss this, the proposed changes before we ultimately go back to City Council. So running through this here again with the presentation. Here's the sequence. Like I said, April 19th was the last time we had a public hearing on this. This is the example scenarios that you'll see within the draft ordinance here, showing kind of a perfect world scenario of where fences can and cannot go. The decision of the Planning Commission was to 42 inches maximum height within the front yard. In the front yard setback, 7 feet everywhere else where it's not abutting a public right of way. So again, we went through this at our previous discussion, showing on this far left side where, this is what currently is allowed as long as if it's 5 feet back. And landscaped in front of it, you are okay to have a 6 foot tall fence. In the ordinance revision 6 feet would have to start all the way back at the far end, away from the street, outside of the setback. This is an example scenario, the third one, of a downtown property where no fence is anywhere in the front yard until you get past the structure. And then the one on the right is an example of if someone's house for some reason encroaches on the setback, doesn't quite conform, their fence can start right at the front facade. This is a kind of a scale drawing-ish of how tall a fence is compared to a 6 foot tall person. It is kind of difficult to find some images online showing different heights and things like that, because fences can be whatever height in many different ways. So this is kind of showing, 4 feet as a tall height, kind of comes up to the person's chest, 3.5 feet, a little bit below that, 3 feet about, to their waist. So these are different various heights that jurisdictions allow within the front yard. Oroville, we're right at 3.5 feet within the front yard under the proposed regulations. So kind of going through what is changing so we are all clear on what's changing. Existing regulations are on the left, proposed regulations are on the right. So existing, our fence code says 6 feet is the maximum, but the building code says 7 feet before a building permit. In addition, the fence code mentions retaining walls, but doesn't specify when a retaining wall requires a building permit. So in the draft proposed regulations, we clearly state within the fence ordinance, 7 feet is the maximum for fences, 4 feet is the maximum for retaining walls. That way you don't have to jump in between different sections of the municipal code. It's all within the one section for you to clearly see. Additional change to the vision triangle. Currently, fences cannot exceed 30 inches within the vision triangle. The proposed regulation is that fences can be up to 42 inches, provided that it is 50% transparent to maintain intersection visibility, and the property owner must apply for an administrative development review permit. That way staff can review to make sure that transparency requirement is met and a public safety concern is not created with an increased height at that intersection. This is the biggest change is the allowed height within the front setback. So as mentioned earlier, existing it's 42 inches, but if it's set back 5 feet, you can go up to a 6 foot tall fence, provided that that setback area is landscaped. The proposed regulation would be the 42 inches anywhere within the front setback. The setback area is specific to the underlying zoning district for R1, R2, R3, etc. And the setback area, that's the minimum distance between the property line and the building. So there's already restrictions in place that the city has adopted on what structures can and cannot go within that front setback area. Really, that front setback acts as a transition between the public and private realm. And our design guidelines, discourage completely enclosing front yards with fences to maintain visibility in and out of the property. So part of this, we, researched other jurisdictions, didn't really include that information. So now I've included within a slide, all of the surrounding Butte County jurisdictions, how they regulate fences. So Butte County, fences cannot exceed 42 inches within the front setback for any non-agricultural, industrial, or airport zones. An additional 2 feet is allowed with an administrative permit. There are additional approvals required from Public Works when adjacent to a public road, in addition to specific material restrictions and visibility requirements. City of Chico, fences cannot exceed 36 inches within the front yard for all parcels, but they allow some relief up to 4 feet with an administrative permit or up to 6 feet with the use permit. Looking at their fee schedule, it's $1,600 for an administrative permit, $6,000 for a use permit. So it's highly unlikely that homeowners will go that route considering the immense costs, but they do offer some relief if you do want a taller fence. Town of Paradise cannot exceed 48 inches within the front yard setback. 6 feet is allowed if the fence is wrought iron or chain link. There are additional safety requirements for fire. If the fence is within 5 feet of the structure, it has to be made of a non-combustible material, those things like that. City of Gridley, fences cannot exceed 36 inches within the front yard. Up to 4 feet is allowed if the increased height is 40% transparent. And the City of Gridley requires fence permits for all fences, whether it's new, modifications, repairs, etc. And then the City of Biggs, 48 inches within the front yard, 6 feet is allowed with the use permit. And similar to Gridley, fence permits are also required for all new fences or for structurally altering and moving existing fences. Then a little bit further, City of Roseville is very strict on this. It's 36 inches anywhere within the front yard, no exceptions. That's it. You get 36 inches. You can't go higher. And then City of Santa Rosa is much more complex. They have 36 inches within the front yard. They set an additional processing review for owners of historic properties, registered historic properties, and they also allow exceptions with a fence conditional use permit as long as if certain findings are made for public safety, appearance, sound construction, things like that. So they offer some relief to the regulations. In summary, the main intent, in researching all these jurisdictions is Oroville is kind of an exception to these regulations. We allow 6 foot tall fences without additional permits, transparency requirements, increased setbacks. The standard within the front yard really ranges from about 30 inches to 48 inches. So really with the changes, we wanted to align the standards with our building code, ensure the construction of fences doesn't impede public safety, and it maintains and improves the visual aesthetic of our neighborhoods while still allowing property owners the ability to construct improvements on their property. So we have some example photos as well to show, kind of what tall fences do to a property. This is a house at Canyon Highlands and Valley View. You'll notice they have a very tall fence completely surrounding their property. Part of the thing as well here is it completely covers their driveway. So you don't have a clear visibility for safety. The entire property is completely surrounded. Similar in this case here, this is right across the street from the previous photo. This left photo here is when the property was completely renovated and listed on the market, beautiful landscaping. And then the owners constructed a 6 foot tall fence right on the property line, completely surrounding it, including the entryways, the pathways, and driveways. So again, there's no clear access point. It obstructs some visibility and it doesn't really look that nice. This kind of shows how it is on both ends of the street here, how it changes the aesthetic of the neighborhood. This is a lot on Greenville and Lower Wyandotte. It's a vacant property. This was a Google Streets image from February of last year. Vacant lot, they're now doing some agriculture and they have a trailer on it. But again, here you see the driveway is open. Looking at the most updated Google aerials, it shows there's now a fence in front of there. So there's no clear access point. You don't know what they're doing behind there. Similar to this one in South Oroville on Lower Wyandotte and V7, I believe. This is a very large, rural property that is completely surrounded. There is no clearly marketed driveway. There's no way to access the property in event of emergency. And again, you don't really know what's happening behind there, who may be behind there. So if you look at the aerials, they're doing some agricultural production. There is some greenhouses, some trailers, some sea crates, and then across the street of Lower Wyandotte, they also have a 6 foot tall fence. Looks like they're engaging in some kind of mining operation. These things are stuff that, staff, code enforcement may not be able to see when they're just driving around. They don't know who's behind the fence, if there's a fire, if there's an emergency. So that's partially the reason why, staff was moving forward with a limitation on fences and changing this. So we're back here at the direction of the city council, kind of just for a discussion, run through this, see if there's any changes the planning commission wants to make that may satisfy the city council, or if you just want to recommend again to city council the adoption of the ordinance as drafted. But I'm available for questions and just to discuss this further.
Can I start, I guess? I wasn't here last week, and so I'm not clear what the city's council's concern was. What, do they have some sort of an objection to something in here? Why was this brought back to us? I don't understand.
Yeah, the city council's concern from a few of the members was that the limitation of 6-foot tall fences. They liked the ability for homeowners and property owners to have the freedom to put a fence where they needed a fence. They didn't like that we were proposing such strict regulations. So that's kind of their main concern that was raised was, how can we balance that personal privacy, public safety, while still allowing people to build fences when they want to build a fence?
Okay.
Chairperson Durling, we do have one speaker on this item. We have Julie Miller in the audience.
Did you have any comment as part of the staff at this point?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Yes, why don't you come up? We have a time limit. Was it 3 minutes or something?
3 minutes.
Yeah.
Hello, Planning Commission. I wanted to thank you, Connor, and Dawn. I don't know if you worked on it or not, but Connor in particular for all your hard work on this. You've done a lot of research, and I really appreciate it because desperately needed our fence codes brought up to date. My concern is the 30 inches on the corner. In the vision triangle, I myself have a corner lot, and I'm looking at other fences. I live in the historic district, so I'm looking at other fences in the historic district, and absolutely no one is going to build a 30-inch fence on anywhere at all. I mean, a 30-inch fence is very low. You can just about step over it. So my concern is this development review process that every single resident that wants to build a fence within the vision triangle is going to have to go through. I might be wrong, but was it a $1,000 fee for the city to come and look at your design or to review that? How much is the fee for that? That was one of my questions that I had for the Planning Commission, because I really don't think it's right to say, oh, well, you can only build a 30-inch fence on your vision triangle unless you want to build a 36-inch fence. Then you have to pay $1,000 for us to let you build it 6 inches higher. I think that's just really not right. And I listened to the council meeting, and there were some council members who just felt as though anyone should be able to build a 6-foot fence in their front yard and no questions asked, even maybe a solid wood fence in their front yard, which I think by Connor's pictures and illustrations, he really showed that that is not appealing, especially not for our historic district. 36 inches sounds to be about the standard for most cities. And I think that we should really hold a firm line. 48 or 42, I'm sorry, would be nice. I mean, 42 inches is a little bit taller. That's fine. But if you're going to say 36 inches in the front yard, I think that's more visually appealing for our neighborhoods. No one wants to live next to a neighbor with some sort of fortress. It's just... Oroville's not a dangerous place to live. It's a nice small town. We want to show a beautiful aesthetic, especially downtown. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks, guys, for listening to me and taking my comments into consideration. I really appreciate it.
Anyone have a question for her? Thank you. Okay, open to its discussion with the Planning Commission and also query staff.
Connor, will there be a fee for somebody to check the opacity on the vision triangle?
So the vision triangle, going back and forth with that one, what would be an appropriate application? Ultimately decided on the development review, because that is one of our cheaper applications. It would be a $244 application fee, so substantially less than the $600 administrative permit, very much less than the $1,400, I believe it is, for a variant. So there would still be a fee for the application for the vision triangle, but it would be $244 and $25, I believe.
And what meets that opacity? Is that typical of a wrought iron fence and a chain link fence?
Yeah, so typical wrought iron fence or a typical like white picket fence where they're spaced out with X amount of inches. In the packet, there's the proposed revisions with the latest showing the opacity, different example images. So something like that with a different spacing between the fence posts.
Thank you.
If I'm understanding it correctly, the city council was mainly concerned with the 42-inch height limit in the front yard in the historic district, correct?
Overall.
Because you
Overall,
can
yeah.
have 6 feet in the front yards, 5 feet back in every other area except for the historic district.
There was some confusion with what's currently allowed and what's changing. So hopefully this presentation I just shared with you guys will present that again to the city council to clearly show what's changing in the example images. So right now, everywhere within the city, you can have a 6-foot tall fence, provided that it's 5 feet back.
Okay, that's what I understood.
Even historic.
Even historic, right. And
Correct.
the only change this code makes stricter is to limit the historic district, where our houses are very close together, to 42 inches in the front yard.
So that's kind of the distinction between the two. So we're limiting to 42 inches throughout the city in residential properties, provided, that it's outside of that front yard setback. Now, within the historic district, the recommendation that the Planning Commission made was anywhere in the front yard, it can only be 42 inches. So there are instances where the front yards are very deep in the historic district, or they're not quite to today's development standards. So anywhere in the front yard being from the street property line to your building would be your front yard.
Personally, I think that is extremely appropriate in the historic district, because by the time on a city block, you take out the vision triangles and on the driveways and on the corners, you have no room to put a 6-foot tall. It would be silly. You'd have a 36-inch or 30-inch fence and then a 6-foot fence and then go down to the 30-inch again, unless you're right against the house. So personally, I like what we came up with because of the way the homes are so tight together, and you really only have 2 interior homes, and a lot of people are on corners, which have the vision triangle. And I don't know how, and then I also think the transparency is vital.
Connor, I'm sorry, were you
Yes.
done?
I'm done.
How hard would it be, or would it not, or are we not allowed to say, can we have maybe a different ordinance if a property is in the historic district, as opposed to being not in the historic district? For front yard fencing, I mean, the 2 examples you showed us on Canyon Highlands, okay? I find them, I don't like that look. It does look like a fortress. And again, those are both corner lots. The vision's bad. You can't see the homes. You can't see the landscape. So are those currently in violation of the code, or they're not in violation of the code?
Those 2 properties at Valley View and Canyon Highlands, parts of the fencing is in violation of the existing code for intersection visibility and especially for the driveway visibility.
Correct.
Additional parts of it, that especially that one right there on the north side of Canyon Highlands, Valley View, the one that was just sold.
Yeah.
That one is an interesting scenario where they have such a large side yard where it looks like their front yard.
Right.
So there's some distinctions there where they can, it gets into a muddy situation, but there are parts that they are in violation.
Well, I mean, if the front door and the address is facing the street, is it, whatever street that's facing should be the
Yeah,
front yard, correct?
correct. But their address is Canyon Highlands.
Okay.
Well,
Right,
their
but it
front
still
door
doesn't
faces
eliminate the
Valley
fact
View.
that even if the address is Canyon High or whatever the other street is, that's right there, it's still a corner lot, so you still have to have the view, right? You have to have
Is it the vision triangle?
the sight, the line of sight, right? for the corner.
Correct, correct.
So I can, maybe if we can, because we have a lot of other rules for the historic district, right? So what if we did something that's a little more liberal in terms of homes in the historic district, if that's possible, to having it outside the historic district?
You mean
Because
stricter?
maybe it's too hard to marry the two, because the properties are so different in the historic district.
Right. Connor has it as a subsection specific to the historic district.
You already have that.
Yeah, yeah.
So the way it is there's like G1 within the proposed ordinance that says, fences within the historic district have to be, this. You kind of like read this, oh, this doesn't apply, move on to the next part. Okay, this is me. If that kind of clarifies what you're asking.
13.
Well, because now that we incorporated Southside, right? So there's a lot of, I've seen a 7-foot tall fence with just, black tarps all across there, so you can't even see the house at all. I'm assuming that's not
Not legal.
legal.
No.
It probably wasn't legal when it was in the county, right?
But would that be like existing non-conforming?
Yes.
But it's a code violation.
Because we annexed it after it was already.
Right, but I'm assuming
way.
it wasn't legal even in the county. Was it?
So that's kind of difficult. The county's fence regulations as they're currently adopted, I don't know when it was, but the county kind of goes a little bit further. They do material regulations. So they say you can't do like a tin fence or a tarp fence. So it comes down to when that was, adopted. I'm assuming, right now, either way, that wouldn't comply with our ordinance because they probably don't meet the setback requirement of 5 feet in the landscaping.
So, okay, so what we're saying is like, just on a regular street, and I'll use mine, my house on Midway, for example. If I'm gonna go 5 feet off of behind the curb, if I wanted to do a 6-foot fence with the gate all the way across to the side, and I can have 7-foot fences on my side yards, or 6 foot along there until I get to the house, where the house starts, then I can go 7, right? So if I wanted to do it, so 5 feet off the property line, I can do a 6-foot fence as current.
It's current, yes.
From the sidewalk.
Well, there is no sidewalks.
Oh,
So it has to be
okay.
back a curb, correct?
okay.
Or property line, right?
Okay.
So that's currently what we have as an ordinance right now?
Yeah,
Yes, let me do this again. Hold on.
yeah. Connor will pull up that diagram.
Pull up this diagram.
It sounds like other cities have a use permit if you'd like to do that.
If you're
Yeah.
5 feet away.
If
Yeah.
we wanted to do that, it sounds like the way that other cities have got around that.
Yeah.
Say standard, if you want to do it, you could go 42. If you want 6, you need a use permit or administrative permit.
Right. Administrative or a use permit. Correct.
Yeah, I just think, look at it, again, I'm not for, I fought the city of Dublin for my fence in my front yard. So I know I don't want to restrict,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know, the residents to do with a fence, but again, it needs to, if it's like if it needs to conform somewhat.
Yeah. I like the other jurisdiction that had a permitted 6-foot fence in the front yard if it's chain link or wrought iron.
That would be Paradise.
Yes.
I don't love chain link, but in the historic district anyway.
But it still meets the opacity that we
So
would
that-
need for
Uh,
visibility.
Safety
Chain link
is
does
not
have
aesthetic.
some, a lot of people don't like it. There is a possibility we can still allow chain link, requiring it to be black powder coated, something like that, to where it's less of a issue if someone does do that in the historic district or anywhere else in the city, really. If that's an option the planning commission would like.
Well, I thought you're talking outside of the historic district right now.
Yeah, I just
This-
wanted to see, because the historic district seems to be a hot topic. So I don't know if we can just, because you want to see the homes in the historic district, right? You don't
Exactly.
want to have 6-foot tall fences where you can't see. So if you can do it differently for the historic district, because it's, as opposed to someone on Canyon Highlands or someone on Midway or someone,
Right.
on whatever street, Right.
which I think is exactly what Connor did in putting it as a subsection. And I think when we talk about this, that balancing between personal property rights and zoning codes and what is good for the neighborhood, I think we kind of got to go back to the general plan. Because that's supposed to be our constitution. And the general plan says that our historic district is supposed to be welcoming. We're supposed to preserve and enhance our downtown. We're supposed to encourage tourism, encourage restoration and reuse, promote development that maintains and reinforces. Our historic downtown is the center. It's vibrant. We're supposed to have all sorts of just tourism and inviting people to come in. And I can't think of anything less inviting than 6-foot tall fences in the front yard. It kind of has the same feeling as bars on windows. And in my mind, that goes completely against, in our small neighborhoods, and I don't even know how it would work with division triangles. So I think it's completely unacceptable, and I think it's against the general plan for the downtown.
In addition to that, I think the other factor here is safety. So it's amazing that, or not amazing, I think it's beneficial to criminals who would like to have that security of cover behind a 6-7 foot fence in the front yard to access one's home. But I think the safety issues, if an ambulance is looking to come and address a medical issue, then they would struggle with finding the front entrance. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that play into this to consider in addition to the general plan and the aesthetics of the community.
Because the community has spoken and said they want to preserve the historic district. So you can't just you try to protect it so one homeowner doesn't build a barricade when the whole city, I mean, we already have stricter guidelines in the historic district. Our historic district overlay we are already under more regulations.
Well, let me ask you this. So I think it was the last meeting that we looked at the fence for the lot home. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that fence will meet our guideline for the historic district, right?
But also because of its zoning, it's not zoned residential, it's zoned public quasi.
Okay, so then all bets are off at that point.
Right.
Well, and to
Okay.
me, the public could weigh in on that fence. We had a whole process to go through that fence. So in my mind, it makes sense to me that you could be more lenient on that because there's so much public input. But with a homeowner just having the right to put up a 6-foot tall fence, nobody can weigh into anything. So I'd rather have a stricter rule for that in the historic district.
So, Don, like you were talking about the opaque fences outside of the downtown area. Would you suggest that with a permit, or would you suggest that just to be allowed as long as the fence was opaque?
If it was going to be fully opaque, then I would suggest an administrative permit. And it would be situational, depending on each application that comes in. If they're requesting higher than what we are proposing, then it would take review of the DRC, the Development Review Committee, and then an administrative permit if they choose to approve it. That's my recommendation.
I mean, Connor, is that something that the council is open to, is to allow that with just a design review, depending on the material let's use, if it's going to be wrought iron or at least so much see-through so you don't have,
Well, and that was where I was suggesting that what Paradise has is that if they were to choose that 6-foot fence in the front yard and it were to be wrought iron or chain link, that they could bypass that review process. So,
Yeah,
just
I
a
think
thought.
Transparency makes
Two
a
different
huge
options.
difference.
I mean, we could go a route. Don had mentioned like Paradise, they allow a taller overall fence within the front yard to begin with. Then the 6-foot has to be, completely see-through. Chico goes the other route with, a shorter fence, but then you could go taller with the administrative permit and then all the way up to the max of 6 feet with the use permit. So if we want to present that option to the city council, say, here are 2 additional options. One, we can, go with an administrative permit for increased height, or, go this transparency of a wrought iron or chain link up to 6 feet in the front yard. That's an option. They're both local examples. So homeowners or, if a fence person is putting in a fence, they should be familiar with that. It's common.
You notice the difference between Paradise and Chico. Paradise, the setback is the height is within the front yard setback. Chico is the front yard, which is everything from the property line back to the house.
Correct. Yeah. So that's a distinction.
That's a huge difference. And for purposes of discussion, we got to make sure we understand if we're going to compare these, that the comparison makes sense. That's a huge difference between Paradise and Chico. Ours is more like Paradise. We're saying within the front yard setback, not the whole front yard. And my argument when we had the hearing, the Planning Commission hearing, I wanted the height limit to be within the front yard all the way back to the house, and you guys didn't agree with that, which is fine. But 6 feet anywhere in the front, to me, is going to, I look at Montgomery. When you drive down Montgomery, you're entering the city. The historic, 80% of the buildings or homes are really historic. If everybody had a 6-foot fence on the property line, that would be the most ugly, uninviting, catastrophic visual situation that I could imagine. So there's got to be purpose in having a setback limit or a height limit within the setback. It's not just safety, but especially in historic areas, it's to maintain the historic ambiance of the city and not destroy that ambiance with a fence. And and that's what we're wrestling with. Go ahead.
Oh, Carl, this is Wes Irvin.
Oh,
I've been listening to this discussion, and you're absolutely right. Every single subdivision, including the one that my father grew up in downtown Riverside in Southern California, has banned or does not allow 6-foot fences in the front yard. They all want to see the front yards. And so this is a very, very standard type of ordinance. And what the city council did not have the benefit of before was Connor's subsequent research here about what all the other cities require. So it seems to me that and Connor and Don and others might want to disagree a little bit, but it seems to me that the one issue that the city council had was property rights versus aesthetics. And Connor has done additional research to show that this really isn't taking away a property right that is unusual in any jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. So that is my hope, that this commission doesn't appear to be wanting to do much changing to what you've already decided on. So it might just be the best would be sort of to reaffirm what you've already gotten and then try and get it through the city council with the additional research.
Right. Yeah. I do agree that would be beneficial for Mr. Musler to represent this to city council with the research that he's done and the presentation and the visuals. I think that will greatly help the council members' decision going forward.
Yeah, that would be the goal, is to go back with this presentation I just showed all of you, kind of just food for thought, for fun, I guess. I looked at the city of Beverly Hills, how they regulate fences, because, you know, famous people want to be behind walls. They require transparency for anything over 3 feet, up to a maximum of 7 feet. So really, Oroville is a exception from everywhere I've looked, from Redding all the way down here to San Diego. We are one of the only communities, I actually couldn't find another one, that allows solid fences by right within the front yard. So if the commission would like, you can, you know, just recommend we go back to city council as the ordinance is drafted and see if we can get it adopted.
Jensen?
Yeah, so I'm sitting here listening to the conversation, and, you know, I have been hung up from the beginning since I asked my question. What was the problem? What is the problem that council had with this? If there was some sort of specific situation that they were concerned about, and it just sounds like no. It's just general property rights issue. Is that really
That's correct.
what we're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, but that's
And so I would say this. I mean, yes, I generally agree in the principle that, you know, you have the right to do, you know, what you want to do on your property, but the reason that we have city planning and this commission is to put together guidelines where we can do what we want on our property without impacting other people, and that's
Or the community.
what we've done here is set up guidelines that allow people to do what they want to the extent where it would start to impact other people. This can start to impact visibility, starts to impact, distance, the welcoming nature that we want to project within the city. And so, yeah, I don't see a problem with what we have here.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm butting in ahead of you here, but the whole zoning ordinance is, and the sign ordinance and whatever, is a discussion about property rights. It's a balance between property rights and public rights. And that's the battle that's been going on since 1948, I think it was. So I get bothered somewhat when they start saying, well, property rights, yeah. But it's a matter of being fair between the needs and desires and hopes and everything of a homeowner versus the needs and desires and hopes of a whole community of what the community represents. And that's what we're trying to get a balance. And I thought personally that we had a good balance in the ordinance that we presented. Maybe the presentation could have been better. I don't know. I'm sorry I didn't attend. I was restricted to my room. But I personally think our ordinance answers the questions that they had, if they could understand. And Connor's presentation that he just gave us is perfect. That's exactly what needs to be presented to the city council and help them understand the balance of public right versus individual homeowner right. And I'm probably exaggerating a little bit. Imagine Montgomery all the way into town having 6-foot fence in the front yard. It would destroy. Nobody in their right mind would want to move to Oroville.
Right.
You drive down, no business. So what kind of city is doing? You know, I just put my developer hat back on and I'd go, get me out of here.
Yeah. So if we're hearing you correctly, commissioners, that the consensus is keep it as is, take it back to council and present it with the presentation and all of the information that Mr. Musler has gathered since then to present to council again.
Go ahead.
And a little bit more, because it was brought up a few things were brought up. Property rights was a big comment by two people who spoke. Even making a comment, I heard no one would ever, that's why people don't want to live here, because you would have to get some type of a permit to build a little bit higher fence in the vision triangle. So I think that is extremely important, what Carl was saying, to express to them that the residents have spoken. This is for all the residents, just that same balance. I think that's important. And to me, it's the idea that you're not going to put a billboard in your front yard, like a flashing LED billboard. That would hurt your neighbors, so you don't have the right to do that. It's part of living in a community together. Also, what was brought up is that the historic district, in particular, I think this was brought up a couple times, is a dangerous place. I'm in the historic district and I don't feel in danger at all. And I walked around the historic district and I only saw one 6-foot fence on a corner that might have infringed 2 or 3 feet where it should be. So I could almost say that I didn't see any fence that they're trying to say we need to be able to allow. So I don't see anyone who wants to do that. So I kind of think it's a non-issue.
Commissioner Jensen, you want to go again?
What was my thought? I'll pull back because I don't remember what my thought was.
Okay. How do you pronounce that name?
Arasi?
Arasi.
Araki?
Arasi.
Arasi, okay. Italian. It's Italian.
Is Italian?
Yeah. I was going to do it Italian because I was raised Italian, but I didn't want to
Well, you would have got
hurt
it
your
right.
feelings.
So
Okay, Arasi.
maybe on a different aspect is some of the businesses on Montgomery Street, the mechanic shops and what have you, they have, it's an eyesore when you're coming down the street. Just right down here you have, all these old, beat up cars.
Right.
Just a bunch of, they're mechanic shops.
And that wouldn't be front yard fencing any longer. That would be visual screening.
Right,
Of
but
a
I mean,
storage area.
is the ordinance going to cover, if you're a business on this, you have to have you have to have your lot or all your stuff screened, because it just, you look like used car lots and junk lots on our historic downtown Montgomery Street.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
It does cor-
is that going to be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Our ordinance, our regulations now actually cover that. It's a subsection within the fence ordinance that refers you to our outdoor storage ordinance, which then specifies the types of screening that has to be for outdoor storage. So in this case, I believe it's a 6 or 7 foot tall solid fence that obstructs visibility into the site.
Right, because right now we don't have that. I mean, these sites,
Yeah.
these sites don't have, they're not obstructed. I've seen the same, half-built car for 2 years on the street. Right inside the fence. I mean, I just think for the downtown area, it should look, it should be a little more pleasing to the eye. Even if it was a cyclone with the redwood stakes through it or something.
Right.
So I don't know if, that's not infringing on property rights. I think that's just more of a pleasing look.
And that will be more of a code enforcement issue at this point.
Okay. And, with regard to the other, I don't see an issue with the way that we've discussed the fence ordinance the last time we put this together. I think when you have the corner lots, you need to have a certain height for health and safety. That's a given. And within the historic district, I think, the fences should be kept to a 48-inch max or 36 or 48-inch max in the front.
Commissioner Jensen, did you remember what?
Yeah, I just had to go back to the page that had my note here. Now, when I was looking, Connor, I was looking at the ordinances from the comparison places that you were putting up here, and it was showing information about, or it was showing that it was a 36-inch limit was pretty much consistent as the lowest height, and we have this 30-inch here, and I was just reading this, and I wasn't quite sure what it exactly it meant. I'm just wondering, do we want to throw council a bone somewhere? You know, just I don't know the dynamic between. I'm new here. I don't know the dynamic between the planning commission and council, so I don't know if there's if they would appreciate that or not. What is first off? What is this the 30 inches? And I'm referring to Part B in the site distance area.
It's in, 50 feet.
Yeah, so the only spot where we restrict down to even shorter at 30 inches is in the vision triangle at intersection corners and at driveway intersections. Once you get outside of that vision triangle, it goes up to 42 inches. 30 inches, similar cities that have 30 inches, City of Rockland, City of Irvine, City of Aliso Viejo, from what I remember off the top of my head. So these numbers are kind of just whatever each city wants to do and sees as right. So the 30 inches in this case is what our previous engineering, whoever it was, determined was needed in the vision triangle. We've since recommended upping that to 42 inches with that 50% transparency requirement.
Not that I have a problem with this. I mean, I have a new teenage driver that that I want her to be able to see around a corner, so in a small car. So I don't know.
I
I'm
personally
just trying to find
36
if there's
would be-
anything in here that we could throw a bone on it, but I don't know. I don't see anything. I'm drawing I'm drawing at straws for council.
I
I'm
don't
trying.
believe in planning by throwing bones.
Yeah.
We had a long discussion, and we're having another good discussion now. And if we want to make a change, it should be based on some facts or something that we missed or whatever. But personally, this is my personal thing, I think the ordinance that we sent up to them was pretty darn good and met a good balance between property rights and community rights. And so that's my personal feeling. You had something?
Only thing I was kind of hoping that would be addressed tonight is this vision triangle. The only reason I'm trying to pick on it is because I do have a corner lot, and to have to pay $245 for the city to tell me I can build another 6 inches is, I'm sorry, but that's really not okay. I don't think. I mean, I think that's petty, and I think that we should just allow the 36 inches with the 50% transparency.
What is allowed now?
30.
30 inches.
Right.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Personally, I don't know about anybody else does, but
I mean, if you
Has
want.
to be transparent.
Right, the 50% is transparency, and we have fences on all the corners downtown, so I don't know.
let me interrupt you for a second, because one of the things that always bothered me, here we are controlling fences, but what about the shrubbery, the bushes that are, I don't know.
It's regulated.
10 feet up, huh?
It's not okay,
No.
right? Connor, it's the same thing.
But it's not,
Correct.
it's not, there's nothing in the ordinance that talks about the shrubbery, that's what I'm saying.
So
It
our
just talks about
ordinance
fences.
lumps shrubbery into the definition of a fence. In addition, the vision triangle restrictions state, shrubs cannot exceed 30 inches within the vision triangle. That would allow, again, an increase if you're using that as a fence per se, up to 42 inches. You're not going to meet the transparency requirement, so really you can't do that. It has to be 30 inches. The reason why we went with the administrative development review, one, it's cheaper than an administrative permit. Two, we need to check and make sure that the intersection will still maintain visibility. Part of the thing is you have that gap. You'll have currently our vision triangle is 30 inches and then 6 feet for tree branches. If we're allowing the increased height for fences, you're narrowing that gap between where a tree branch may start and where a fence is if it happens to be solid. So your window of visibility really shrinks, and that could cause a public safety concern. That would allow staff to, go in, check, make sure, hey, you need to trim up your branches before we can approve this, or you didn't meet our 50% transparency. The intersection is kind of compromised at this time. You can't see unless you're in a lifted truck per se.
Connor, can you also expand on where the vision triangle language is derived from?
Yeah, so the vision triangle language, there's many different restrictions on that. So Caltrans sets specific visibility requirements on state highways. The city's vision triangle was done by a previous engineer after some studies to determine what is an adequate height where visibility will not be compromised. So, it was determined that 30 inches is the maximum height, and then 6 feet for the trees is available so you could still see and maintain intersection visibility. So extensive studies are done on what is the best for maintaining intersection visibility. You'll see, there's YouTube videos out there, 2 engineers go out with reflective poles and see how far away until you can't see the pole anymore. So these are really extensive studies, and part of the concern that staff has with revising the engineering standards is we'll then have to conduct additional extensive studies to guarantee essentially that we're not creating a public safety issue or increasing liability for homeowners or for the city.
My only question is, real quick. If we're allowing higher than 36 inches, as it is right now on our corners, which we have, there are many fences on corners that are transparent that are higher than 36 inches or 30 inches. If that's already allowed, is there any sort of language that can be put in there that if the fence is 50% transparent or 60% transparent, that the fee will be waived? Because I think that this is common sense. To go another 6 inches with a transparent fence is not going to inhibit the vision triangle at all. It's 6 inches. It's a transparent fence. Are we all okay with charging?
You can have a transparent fence up to 42, right? We're just talking
No,
about.
only with the $245 fee that you have to pay. Mm-hmm. You have to pay a fee to get approved for that.
So let me weigh in here on how we typically implement this fence ordinance. When someone is proposing a residence, they do have to provide us a site plan. They have to show us where their fences are going to be and all of that. So we do check that against the fence ordinance each time. And we oftentimes, it's very common that we work with these, and they come in and they inquire as I put my fence, how close do can I put it to my front yard, et cetera, et cetera. So fences that are not built, typically staff gets to work with them in order to help them interpret this code. There are very seldom objections to what's in the code. For existing fences, these tall fences are non-conforming uses, and typically a fence can be rebuilt as is for maintenance or for restructural purposes. So that's how we implement the fence ordinance. Every single fence, just like this discussion, gets very, very detailed, and it gets quite emotional as well. But we do get a chance to work with individual homeowners on helping them to build a fence that meets our ordinance.
I feel like I'm involved in the sign ordinance all over again.
Thanks, guys.
I don't have a problem. Look, what is the purpose of this height limitation on these corners? It's for visibility, for safety. So if you have somebody in a car or somebody on a bicycle, what is their eye level height sitting in the car? It's about 4.5 feet, okay? Same on the bike. So if you have a 36-inch fence, it's not going to obstruct anybody in a car or riding a bike. So I'm countering my last hearing thing, and I think I agree with a 36-inch fence. That's 3 feet. It's easy to understand, and that's a bone.
It's hard to buy
You want to call it a
30-inch
bone,
fences.
but I think there's justification that you can come up with justification that I just done is the height, the eye height of somebody driving a car or riding a bike or most of, any other kind of vehicle, you're at least eye level 3 feet. But more, at least 3 feet. So personally, I don't have a problem with 36 inches at all.
Yeah, I personally agree too, because it's very hard to find nice fences that are 30 inches.
Yeah. And Don has left us, but maybe Connor can clarify. I mean, the ordinance as stated says, in the sight distance area, the fences may be erected up to 42 inches that are transparent, or no more than 50% solid. It's if you have a solid fence where we're limiting it to 30 inches.
No, it's, I think, any height above 30 inches.
And that's not what it says.
You're correct, Commissioner Jensen. So you can do 30 feet, or 30 feet, that's going to call 30 inches. 30 inches, if it's completely solid. If you want to go up to 42 inches, you have to do the 50% transparent. So we're allowing up a taller overall height, provided it's transparent. It didn't sound like the city council had concerns with increasing the height within the vision triangle. Their main concern was the strict limitation of the 6 foot tall fence in the front yard. So I apologize, I don't quite know where the 36 inches coming from. If we're wanting to shrink it down from 42 to 36 inches or leave it as is.
That's not what we were talking about, but that's okay.
$245.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you don't have to pay that if it's transparent.
If
You don't
it's-
have to pay that.
Correct. You have up to 42 inches.
I
I'm reading-
missed that completely.
I did too.
Thank you for reading that.
Thank you. Then I'm happy.
Okay, good. We like making people.
And where, I gotta see it with my own eyes though.
It does not often when we
Right
make
here.
people happy, right? Okay.
I'm back on the sign ordinance again. Back in the saddle again. Okay, any other discussion, questions of Connor?
No, it's not very clear, but the second part of that is if it's
Connor, have
not
we
50% solid.
Oh, yeah, totally.
discussed this enough to where it'll help you with your presentation and getting the council to understand?
Can you make them agree with us, Connor?
I think we're gonna keep it as is, present it to the city council. I don't know if we want to keep it as consensus or if you want to take a vote recommending keep it as is and adopt it. But I know what I need to do.
What is the height limit on the corner? Is it? I wanted to go.
Maximum 42 inches.
Oh, so why is she having a problem with?
I misread, it's all my fault. I think I misunderstood.
Well, you let me stick my foot in it too then, huh?
No.
I had to read it a few times before I
Yeah.
understood it myself, so.
If it's transparent,
If it's
you can go
transparent-
to 42 inches. I totally missed that too,
From 36
from
to
30.
40, I mean, from 30 to 42.
It's if you want
If
to
it's
put
transparent.
solid.
The solid was the solid.
But if it's transparent,
Yeah.
there's no
It's
fee.
fine.
No problem, no fee. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I'm happy about no fee, that part.
well, I'm not here to try to make you happy, I'm here to try to get
Oh, I know, but I'm just
something
thinking
that's
about.
fair,
others. Yes,
for everybody.
of course.
Well, is it better if we vote, if we all agree, or what's the most powerful thing we can do?
Well,
So
it was an
Connor-
ordinance originally, and we voted on it. So what we're doing is slightly modifying the ordinance. I should have thought it would have been a hearing,
I would recommend voting on it again.
yes.
Well, it was a discussion this evening, but because we're making some modifications
Right,
to
it needs
represent to
be-
council, I
it
would
needs to
recommend a
be,
vote.
Somebody make a motion and a second, and
Well, wait, what's our modification? I thought we're doing it,
I believe we're representing to council with no modification,
yeah,
correct?
that's what I thought.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
I went to the restroom.
If we're presenting with no modifications.
Nothing, we are happy
Still-
with it.
whoa.
You can still make a vote, so, I motion to recommend city council adopt the fence ordinance as drafted.
And it can
With-
affirm your
After
direction.
Connor Muessler's great presentation.
Time out. The corner height is 30 inches, not 36, isn't it?
Yeah, 30 inches and then up to
What I'm saying,
42.
it should be 36 inches. And
Solid.
and it's above 36, it should be transparent.
I would caution on increasing the height of the solid because that would trigger the engineering studies to
Yeah.
be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't too. I'm sure some engineer has a
You know, if
stamp on
Connor,
it somewhere.
yeah, if Connor's going to affirm that the 30 inches was defined based on engineering studies as sightlines, then I'm inclined to stick with the 30 inches.
Well, I don't-
don't like solid anyways.
I can disagree with it. I disagree with engineers all the time, developers.
So if there's
Anyway,
no
that's
change,
fine, we can,
If you'd like to conduct your own engineering study, you're welcome to do so, I'm sure, and inform us.
we can, move it back to the city council as it is with the presentation that Connor gave. I think that would help them understand. So I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Also move.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Want to vote on it? There we go. Okay, passed. Great.
Motion carries
Connor,
with
thank
5
you.
yeses and zero no's.
Connor, you're back. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to thank you very much. I think you're going to help the council reach a decision.
This is the sign code 2.0. We started this in August of last year, so hopefully we'll get it finished by August of this year.
I gotta go through
5
the
years shy of the
sign.
sign code.
Okay, we'll move to item 2, and now, the lady on my right.
Okay, I start, not staff.
Huh?
I start, not staff. I start, okay. This is based on the proposal that I kind of started, and then Carl and I worked together with staff. The goal here is to meet our requirements and our duties as we are the Historic Advisory Commission. And one of the ones that I think this one really meets is to promote and conduct educational and interpretational programs on the historic properties within the downtown historic district, and to provide an inventory of existing historic landmarks and an inventory of contributing and non-contributing features. So originally, one of my passions was, instead of even doing codes and regulations, it always is coming from more of a negative. I wanted our committee to come up with buildings that we felt were properly restored and reused, and their history was kept alive, and they met zoning codes, very high standard, that they were outstanding examples of architectural period appropriate rehabilitation and adaptive reuse. And then Carl really helped me understand too that there's two sides to this. The reason the buildings are so important is because of the stories that they tell of the people who lived in them and the accomplishments that those people did and the events that happened in that location. And so the building is really the vehicle to tell the story, especially when we get to reuse the buildings again. And Carl wanted us to also recognize historic sites and maybe buildings that had a wonderful history that needed to be told and celebrated in an effort to encourage more restoration. So what we've come up with, and we can go through all of it, but is kind of a blending of the two. So we're not just stuck giving an award to a building that's in perfect, outstanding shape. We can also consider a wonderful historic landmark that we want to bring attention to so that it can be improved and the stories can continue to be told.
Thank you. Staff, did you have any comment on, I forgot to include you,
That's okay. No comment.
okay?
Well said.
Has commissioners had, I'm sure, hopefully have read the proposal? I don't know if this is an ordinance. What is this?
Not an ordinance, it's
No.
just an award. It's similar to our Sam Norris Award.
Wish it was a part of the zoning ordinance personally, but that's neither here nor there.
It's an award of recognition.
So, I'll open it for discussion with the commissioners. Any changes or suggestions or whatever? We've had quite a bit of input. I think this is the third time we've discussed it, and that's my fault because it's so, to me, so important. I'm a history nut also, and I've had some very sad story in my life about loss of history. So to me, this is really important. So if anybody wants to suggest a change or whatever, now's the time to do it. If not, I'm ready for a motion.
I'd say the most important thing right now is to actually get this moving forward. It's good enough to run with for me, so.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still waiting for a motion. I'm waiting for a motion.
A motion that we institute or accept the Historic Preservation Award Program as a responsibility of the Oroville Historic Advisory Commission,
As a recommendation to the city council.
as a recommendation to the city council.
Yes.
I'll second.
You have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. There we go.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you.
So if they approve it, we get to choose one property or a landmark in a property or whatever this year.
Yes.
Yes.
And you guys need to look around. You need to, I'm serious. I mean, to me, this is really important.
Anywhere in Oroville.
I was raised on a ranch that had a barn, a huge barn that had redwood posts from redwood trees that were hauled over from the coast and then cut for the pillars to hold up. And that barn was torn down, and it made me sick. Physically made me sick when I found that out. And ever since then, history, preservation of buildings for all the reasons that were mentioned are really important. So I think I've said enough.
I think the meetings could be very long when we're deciding which is going to get the award.
Okay, let's go on to reports. Anything from the commission? Anybody go to a meeting or anything, commissioners? Have anything they want to inform us about?
I don't have a commission report, but I have a comment, I guess.
Go ahead.
On the letter, I would guess all the homeowners received about the solid waste recycling, organic waste disposal. Are you involved with that? Or?
Yes, I am.
Is there a way that the city could send a letter to the state saying that they 90% comply currently? Neal Road Landfill's had the methane recovery system for at least 10 years now.
Oh, yeah, we've been in constant contact with Cal Recycle regarding this. I meet regularly with Butte County, the City of Chico, City of Biggs, Gridley, regarding this SB 1383 pertaining to organics and recycling. And so it is another unfunded mandate by the state. We're navigating through it the best we can. We're working with Recology to meet the requirements of this mandate. Things are being rolled out slowly. We're applying for all the grant funding we can to ease the burden on business owners. But it's...
Yeah, I mean, it'd just be a waste separating our scrap just to have it put right back together.
Yep.
The landfill has, I've surveyed many of the gas wells there, and they've had them, there's, for anybody that doesn't know, they have Neal Road Landfill where all of our trash goes, has a methane recovery system and a power plant that generates power from the methane.
I didn't know that.
And that goes directly into the power grid. So it's all of our compostable waste is turning into methane in the landfill
They're doing
already.
that at the
and being,
landfill, aren't they?
yes, Yes.
Yeah,
and
that-
it's-
from the
it's
very
being-
beginning.
It's being collected and it's
Yeah.
being turned into power.
But are you saying we shouldn't separate our
We,
food waste?
no,
or that you're
it
saying
it should all go,
doesn't matter?
in my opinion, it should all
go
go,
in there.
just what it's doing right now
Oh.
and all go in there.
That's what
They've got gas wells in the modules that they build that collects all the methane when the garbage is rotting, the compostable material, and it goes to a power plant.
That's what generates the methane.
Yeah.
You're saying
Yeah.
this is a total wasted ordinance.
Everything but possibly the edible food, I would say is a waste of money for our town anyway. Other municipalities may not have a landfill as advanced as ours.
And there, I think that because the Nail Road landfill falls within the county's jurisdiction, the county should write a letter, and then the other jurisdictions who contribute to Nail Road and haul their waste would write sub-support letters to the county's letter to the state. But, just a thought. No,
Yeah, just bring it up. I just see
Oh,
it as
yeah.
a waste of
No.
money and.
That's why we have this little section here about commissioner reports, is
Mm-hmm.
bring these kinds of things up so we can discuss them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe take an action to formalize the discussion for a recommendation or something, too. So, thank you.
So you're saying I don't have to feel guilty when I put my eggshells in the trash?
No, everything will compost and, yeah, the methane's
Okay.
been recovered
I
for
feel so much
many
better
years
because I
now.
was kind of feeling guilty.
Plastic's a little different, you know,
No, that goes in recycle.
that goes in
I got
recycle.
that down.
Yes. All right, our Historical Advisory Commission reports, we've done that.
Well, I'd like to make an announcement that would serve as a Historical Advisory Commission report. This Wednesday of next week at the Historic Oroville State Theater, we're doing a fundraiser. It's Star Wars Day, May the 4th. And we're showing Return of the Jedi.
Wow.
Oh,
So
really?
this is really the first big modern film that we've
Yeah,
been
so-
trying to shoot, that we've tried to, it took us a lot of effort to put together, well, not us, I wasn't involved personally, but the people who did put it together, it took a lot of effort to get this. And so we're expecting a big turnout, and it's going to be a big fundraiser for the theater. Now that we're on our own, we're not, under the city or
drawing
getting
from the
any
city
any
anymore.
additional subsidy from the city. We would appreciate any support that we can get for this and any other future
How do we let the
movies or
community know?
fundraisers.
I mean, is there a system?
That's a good question. That's something that we're grappling with.
Yeah.
We have our social media, we have our email list, but if you don't sign up for our email list, again, it's something we're grappling with.
Why don't you talk to one of these people that send me stuff I don't want? Get their lists. And send them something that maybe they do want. I tell you,
people did you have last week?
What I probably wouldn't know, but what event last week?
They showed,
Oh, the matinee. I haven't spoken with anybody at the theater about that at this time.
they said they had a great time, and, they just loved it, so.
Yeah, we're trying to find shows or movies that would cater to a much younger audience than they've catered to in the past.
oh,
It's been
yeah. Whoa, just a minute.
I've been trying to get my 16-year-old daughter to give me suggestions, but she's like, Dad.
How about an 83-year-old man?
We want to get young people involved with the theater and,
Yeah, absolutely.
bring them in and let them get a connection that a lot of us have had over the years.
Yes,
So.
and as they grow and become older and more part of the community, it just really supports the theater. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody? Thank you. Staff reports? Anything?
I have none this evening.
No updates on projects or non-projects or?
We're
New projects?
still in an application stage on some projects. I think Wes may have a list to present. So I'll let Wes take the lead this evening.
I see his mouth moving, but I don't hear anything.
Uh-oh, yeah.
Okay,
Wes, your mic's not working.
Why, okay?
There you
There you
go.
go.
Okay. Yes. Warren, you missed announcing the significance of the date. for that Star Wars movie.
Star Wars Day, yeah, May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you.
Oh, boy.
Oh, jeez.
I think it's
I
on
said May the
purpose.
4th,
think
but I
that's
guess
on
it
purpose.
didn't,
I cannot
waiting to do
believe
that.
he said that.
He was.
He's just waiting to do that.
And lots of flyers and things could go out all throughout the town, all through all of the commercial businesses and
The
the
restaurants.
restaurants and stuff about that. Okay, staff report. We have a contract to update the circulation element for the Butte County with PlaceWorks of the general plan, and that is to deal with the vehicle miles traveled requirement that's come down from the state. The
Yes,
city
sir.
council approved negotiating a marketing branding contract. So Oroville may have a new city brand over the next year or so. The housing element is about ready to get submitted to
That's what I had.
Housing and Community Development, to HCD, for its preliminary review, and after which it would come back to the Planning Commission for a recommendation. We have several subdivisions in the works and several tentative subdivision maps that are being considered for extension or for revival. On May 26th, your next Planning Commission meeting, there is an extension for the McGreen tentative subdivision map, which is a 19 parcel subdivision on 2nd Street. And the city is going to initiate rezoning the Ford dealership across the street to mixed use downtown so that it's easier for commercial and entertainment projects to occur at that location. So look for these upcoming, and that's my report.
Thank you, Wes. I knew you were going to read my mind for me.
do we get an opportunity to ask a question or two
Sure.
about that? So Wes, I've been noticing the traffic counters around town. Is that in preparation to the circulation element in the VMT, or?
No, that it has to do with Butte County Association of Governments, or BCAG. Every 4 years they do new traffic counts throughout Butte
That
County.
includes within the city then here?
Yes.
Okay. Didn't know that.
Well, the state does it. I think they're required to do it every 5 years, or you can't get a ticket on state highways. I
Right.
don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The state law says that they have to conduct speed survey on state highways. And if they don't, during the next year, the 6th year, they can't pull you over for speeding.
They'll never tell you that.
No.
So I'm letting everybody know that. If there's nothing else, then we'll adjourn the meeting to, what's the next date?
26?
May 26th, Carl.
26. Thank you. And thank you for the hard work of everybody on this fence, and I'm looking forward to Connor. Connor, again, really, thank you for the way you put together the presentation. I think that's really going to help the city council. That's it. Let's go home.